So now we already have a form to create new activities. But this is just a basic markup, and in this lesson we're gonna get to functionality. So when this form is sent, we're gonna add new item to activities array and eventually display new activity on the page. And in order to do so, firstly we need to create a variable which will store state of the input field. We can do this inside of the activities component. So let's create a variable called new activity. And now we're gonna have to bind value of this variable to our input field. So in here we're gonna use vbind directive and bind value of new activity variable to value attribute. And just to check if it works, let's set some initial value to this new activity variable and check it in the browser. And what we're supposed to see right now is that input field should contain word new. And that is exactly what we see right here. And also on the right side, we see that variable new activity has the same value. And the next step would be to make it so that whenever value of text field is updated, it should also automatically update state variable new activity. In other words, we're gonna have to keep text field with state variable new activity in sync. So let's listen for event called input on this input field. And when this event occurs, that means that the value inside of text field has changed. And we're gonna assign the new text in this text field to our new activity variable. So by using special event variable, we can get the reference to current input field via target property. And this DOM element contains value property, which stores current text in this field. So after that, let's try to modify text and see what's gonna happen to a new activity variable. And as we can see, it was just updated with a new value inside of text field. So moving on, and the next step would be to listen for event of this form submission whenever we press enter while being focused on the input field, or when we click on the corresponding button. And once we catch submission event, we should fire another event from the activities component to our root component. Because the root component stores an array of activities, which is our main source of truth for list of activities. So we should manipulate list of activities on the page by modifying this activities array. So let's go back and assign event listener for submit event to this form. And once this form gets submitted, we're gonna fire another event called create activity to a parent component. And along with that, we should tell parent component the name of the new activity. And since new activity name is stored within new activity variable, we just need to pass this variable in here as a second argument. And just to prevent default browser behavior whenever we send form, so it will not fully refresh the page, we can use special modifier called prevent right after event name. And this way browser's default behavior will be prevented and we will be able to handle for submission in our own way. So let's go ahead and see what will happen when we will send this form. And in a console we're gonna see a warning that our custom component just fired an event create activity. But we have not declared this event yet by using define limits macro. So let's go back to our component and explicitly specify event name create activity within this object along with validation function is activity valid. Because with this event we're sending activity name to parent component. So is activity valid, function will make sure that our new activity name will not be empty. And of course, since we fired this event, we also need to register listener in the parent component called app. Let's add event directive with the name create activity on the activities component. And the function which is going to handle this event will be create activity. So let's declare this local function in the script tag. Here we're gonna use one parameter activity, which this function will receive. And all this function has to do is to add one more activity to our activities array. And since this array is reactive, we need to reference value property and use method push to push new array item to the end of this array. So this way we're adding new activity name to the end of activities array. And because this array is reactive, Vue is supposed to detect changes made to this array. And based on new value of this array, it will re-render those parts of the UI which depend on this array. So now in the browser, after we submit the form to create new activity, we're gonna see that our new activity sleeping was just added to activities array in the app component. And of course, based on the new value of activities array, Vue has just re-rendered our list of activities, and we can see our new activity at the end of this list. So now whenever we will keep adding new activities, our activities array will be updated and new activities will appear on the page. And now let's go one more time through all the flow of creating new activity. We'll start from the activities component. Here we have activity form, which when it gets submitted, fires another create activity event to root component and also passes the name of the new activity to parent component. And then parent component listens for this create activity event and accepts new activity name as the first parameter to the function create activity. And then this function adds new activity name to the activities array, which is reactive. So all those parts of our UI which depend on activities array will be re-rendered. In this particular case, we can see that the activities component depends on activities array because we pass this array as a prop to this component. And then inside of this component, that Vue for loop will run again, and this time it's gonna render our list of activities, including our newly added activity, since our new activity is contained within activities array at the end. And this way, every activity item component corresponds to individual element from activities array. So now let's just go back to the activities component and reset value of new activity variable. So initially our text field within activity form will be empty.